My name is Ryan McGoffin, and I'm here to share with you the history of the newspaper in America. We are here to welcome Olivia from Spokane, Washington. Now, Olivia, what exactly is a newspaper?
It's when you read about news and what's going on in the world.
A newspaper is a printed publication consisting of folded, unstapled sheets containing news, featured articles, advertisements, and correspondence.
So, Grayson, what was the when did the newspaper in America come along?
In America, the first newspaper appeared in Boston in 1690, entitled Public Occurrences. The first successful newspaper was the Boston Newsletter, begun by Postmaster John Campbell in 1704. Articles in colonial papers, brilliantly conceived by revolutionary propagandists, were a major force that influenced public opinion in America from reconciliation with England to full political independence. At war's end in 1783, there were 43 newspapers in print. The press played a vital role in the affairs of the new nation. The ratification of the Bill of Rights in 1791 at least guaranteed of freedom of the press, and America's newspapers began to take on a central role in national affairs. By 1814, there were 346 newspapers. In the Jacksonian Publius 1830s, advances in printing and paper-making technology led to an explosion of newspaper growth. The emergence of the penny press, it was now possible to produce a newspaper that could be sold for just a cent a copy. The price of a year's subscription, usually over a full week's pay for a laborer, had to be paid in full and invariably in advance. This sudden availability of cheap, interesting reading material was a significant stimulus to the achievement of the nearly universal literacy now taken for granted in America.
Yeah, go.
In the 1850s, powerful giant presses appeared, able to print 10,000 complete papers per hour. At this time, the first pictorial weekly newspapers emerged. They featured for the first time extensive illustrations of events in the news as woodcut engravings made from correspondence sketches or taken from that new invention, the photograph. During the Civil War, the unprecedented demand for timely, accurate news reporting transformed American journalism into a dynamic, hard-hitting force in the national life. Newspaper growth continued unabated in the post-war years. An astounding 11,314 different papers were recorded in the 1880 census. By the 1890s, the first circulation figures of 1 million copies per issue were recorded. Ironically, these newspapers are now quite rare due to the atrocious quality of cheap paper then in use, and to great losses in the World War II era paper drives. At this period appeared the features of the modern newspaper: bold banner headlines, extensive use of illustrations, funny pages, plus expanded coverage of organized sporting events.
The rise of yellow journalism also marks this era. Harsh could truthfully boast that his newspapers manufactured the public clamor of war on Spain in 1898. This is also the age of media consolidation, as many independent newspapers were swallowed up into the powerful chains, with regrettable consequences for a once fearless and incorruptible press. Many were reduced to vehicles for the distribution of particular views of their own owners, and so remained without competing papers to challenge their viewpoints. By the 1910s, all the essential features of the recognizably modern newspaper had emerged. In our time, radio and television had gradually supplanted newspapers as the nation's primary information sources, so it may be difficult initially to appreciate the role that the newspapers have played in our history.
Paper publishing in Oklahoma can be separated chronologically by territorial and statehood titles. It was also during this time that the first newspaper, the Cherokee Advocate, began publication in September of 1844. Some papers were published in the backs of wagons and moved from town to town, starting the day after the first land run. After towns became established, papers in numbers well out of proportion to population needs were established in scores of small towns. Also during this time, entire communities were established by groups from foreign countries, including Germans, Czechoslovakians, and Norwegians. When these two territories were joined by statehood in 1907, more than 1,500 different newspapers had appeared in Oklahoma. all within a span of less than 20 years. Several of these early sheets endorsed minor political parties, served large ethnic populations, or were published by non-whites. African Americans were among the earliest settlers in the region. After the Civil War, several American communities appeared with their own newspapers, often in competition with each other. Through the years following statehood, newspapers in Oklahoma generally followed national trends in journalism.